Hello, everyone. I'm Mark.
And I'm Rob.
Today, we're going to talk about whether or not there's a league-wide conspiracy against Caitlin Clark and maybe even in the media. Welcome to Mark and Rob's Sports Showdown. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit that notification bell when you do so you get notified of our next videos. Rob, so I'm going to give you some examples and let me know whether or not you think there's a conspiracy against Caitlin Clark.
Okay.
Whether it's part of the conspiracy or what's going on exactly, because it might not be a conspiracy, but it certainly feels that way to me and to other people. So first, let's talk about the rough schedule they got. Now, it's my understanding that the schedule actually came out December 18th. Now, even then, they weren't sure Caitlin Clark was going to come out. They weren't sure Indiana Fever was going to get the number one pick. I think it all has to do with the arena's availability and stuff like that. And then the Olympics, the 2 weeks, there was actually almost a month break, but the Olympics are for 2 weeks. So I think that made it difficult for them to make the scheduling up. Do you think that's part of the conspiracy? You think that was just bad luck?
Well, Mark, I watch a lot of CSI, and I think that it might be a little of both, but I probably tend more to be more of just a scheduling or just, I'd say I'd go with conspiracy. I would go with that.
You go with this conspiracy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to completely disagree with you, Rob. I think that was just bad luck. And for the reasons I just gave, it was made up December 18th. And I think it would be almost impossible for them to change it because of the fact that it's already made up and there's arenas booked and things like that. So I think, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, because the reason why I say that is because how come the Aces are now had all those home games? And now, I don't know if you noticed, I think I might be wrong. I might have to look it up. But I think the Seattle Storm have 9 straight home games. How can you have that?
Well, Rob, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying I don't think there was a big conspiracy. I'm not even saying the schedule was well done. In fact, I think it was poorly done, and I find it hard to believe they couldn't have made it fair. I just think they made up the schedule. Whoever did it is not very good, or else they're up against obstacles that we're not aware of. So I admit that part, but I don't think it was on purpose. I think it was incompetency and bad luck for Caitlin Clark.
So you're just giving it. Oh yeah, it was okay. So you're going with that. It wasn't against her. It's just that there are a bunch of goofs.
I don't think it's part of the conspiracy. I think it's just bad luck. I brought that up first because some people actually thought they did this against Clark, and then they gave her a lot of games right away so they could showcase her. Mm-hmm. And I think the schedule was already made up. It was just a coincidence that she was the showcase star, and they had a lot of games. They had 11 games in 20 days, and a lot of them were away, and a lot of them were against the best teams. So I think it was just bad luck.
Yeah, it's bad luck and it's poorly. I mean, you would think that the person making up the schedule. I've been a victim of that recently, so
you're not with me, with your other job, right?
Yeah, my other job. So you switched me over from conspiracy to this person that's making a mistake and didn't go over looking to see, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be working 7 straight days. So
all right, let's talk about the GM and the coach. So coach sides, we've covered this in other videos, and I think pretty much everyone seems to conclude 2 things about her. The first one, everyone seems to agree on, let's put it that way, that she's clueless. All right, so I think that was just bad luck because she got sent to the Indiana Fever. But I don't think people knew that she was so insecure and had such a big ego that she was going to do things that hindered Caitlin Clark because she wanted herself to make herself look good. She was afraid Caitlin Clark was going to get the credit, and she wasn't going to get the credit if the Indiana Fever had a big turnaround. You agree with that aspect of it, Rob?
Well, that doesn't make sense. You have one of the best players, future players coming in on your team, yet you want to treat her and conspire against her not doing well. That doesn't make sense as far as a general manager or as a business person. Why would I want to do that?
Right. Well, I'm just saying that's what she did. I think that's what she's doing. And I think it's a combination of her being clueless and also not wanting Clark to get the credit. So I don't know. I don't consider that a conspiracy, but it certainly contributes to the obstacles that Clark had to go through.
But that's kind of dumb, because you're going to get the credit for picking this player, and then you're going to get the credit for if they're getting wins. So yeah, for her to go into the emotional part of like, well, I don't want her to overshadow me, is very, very strange.
Of course, it's dumb. I get the impression she's not very smart to begin with. Not just she's incompetent. I just don't think she's a very smart person. Because look at what she does common sense tells you not to throw your players underneath the bench after every press conference, right? You don't have to be smart to know that.
Right.
But she can't even figure that out.
No.
So I just don't think she's a very smart person. And she's very practical in life either. So now let's take the GM. Now, the GM generally, if you're new to basketball, like some Clark fans are new, the GM usually makes the decisions on the players, who's on the team and who's not on the team. But at the same time, the GM talks to the coach and to the owner, because the owner has to sign the contracts. But that's the GM's job, to shape the roster. And the GM knows they're struggling on defense and knows they have enough frontline people. When they activated Damaris Dantas, they already knew Temi was coming back. So they weren't really going to be short with forwards. And they weren't even playing Saxton. So they obviously had enough forwards, since one wasn't even getting any playing time. So why did they waive a guard? And then why did they waive a guard who is their best defensive player and they're struggling on defense? So that feels like they're trying to sabotage the team. And also she's friendly with Caitlin Clark. So if you're a conspiracy person, it feels like you're sabotaging Clark because you're against her, like the GM. I don't understand why they did that.
Well, that's the bottom line, Mark. You're not just sabotaging Clark. You're shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, you want the team to win. I mean, that's supposedly your motive as being GM. You want to have a winning team, because that makes you better and you get more profit and things like that. But again, I don't think she gets it either, as far as with the players. I mean, you draft a player who's very good in defense, and then you get rid of her for what?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I to conclude, I think the GM is just incompetent. I heard she was a very good coach. I don't know that much about Liz Dunn is her name. And I think the owner's not involved enough, because I think the owners should have been involved enough to know that they were making a mistake by waiving Celeste Taylor and adding a player who's still injured and not in shape. And they didn't really need a forward since Temi was coming back, and they had a forward they weren't playing. So it seems like the owner should have said, no, you're not going to waive Celeste Taylor. The owner could have overruled the GM. So I don't think it's conspiracy, but I think they're all incompetent. But I also think the coach has a little bit of a conspiracy against Clark because she wants the credit. Now, the owner, Herb Simon, he owns also Indiana Pacers. I don't know why he's not more involved in some of these decisions, because he could overrule the GM. I understand that people say, well, there's a quote supposedly from him, I don't know if it's true, that it's a tax write-off, which I find hard to believe. He wouldn't care about the success for the team, because the more successful they are, the more money he makes, and he still wants to make money.
Right.
And his son is supposedly a minority owner and going to be the majority owner once Herb Simon dies. And his name is Stephen Simon. And he is also involved in the decision-making, supposedly. So they got two owners that could be on top of this, and neither one seemed to be on top of what's going on, because the GM and the coach seem incompetent, and no one's gotten fired yet, especially the coach. What do you think?
Right. I mean, you think he would. I think you think with the Pacers, he formed a very good team when he drafted Halliburton, and then he was a free agency this year. He had Pascal Siakam, who helped them get into the playoffs, into the Eastern Finals. So you would think that would carry over into the women's WNBA with players.
Right. All right. So let's talk about the refs next. And I've covered this in other videos, but we got some new viewers, and it's worth touching on again. Now, I don't know whether this is a conspiracy or not, but certainly the calls have gone against Caitlin Clark. And it's more than just the rookie veteran calls that veterans are supposed to get. Clearly, almost every game, especially in the first half of this quarter of the season, I guess, half of what they played so far, the calls went against her. She got ticky-tack fouls. At the same time, she also got fouled, and some of the fouls weren't even called. Some weren't upgraded to flagrant one. and they missed a lot of calls against her. And so I have to think, okay, so why is that happening? And the theory that I came up with is, number one, they decided, well, she's got all this publicity. I'm not going to give her favorable cause, because then people will say, you're giving her favorable cause because she's got all that publicity and she's supposed to be the savior of the league. So they err on the other side and they actually make calls against her.
Right.
And I have another theory for some of them now. The league is predominantly black and we think predominantly lesbian. We don't know the percentage. The black percentage is somewhere between 64 and 70%, and white's only 19%. The lesbians, somewhere between 33 and 98%. Candace Wiggins says 98, 33 have come out, but we know it's more than 50%. We can tell. So I'm wondering, some of the refs are black, some of the refs are probably lesbian. And I'm wondering if they're protecting or sticking up for the players in the league because they know the players are upset about Caitlin Clark getting so much publicity and so much money. And maybe they're doing that. Maybe it's not conscious, but unconsciously making calls against Caitlin Clark, because it definitely hasn't been fair. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, well, I'll give it the first part of your about Caitlin Clark. How I think the referees were just overcompensating for saying, okay, well, we can't make these calls even because they might look like they're favoring her. But I think this overall is that the referees just suck. That's my bottom line. They're not that efficient. They're not that good.
Well, that doesn't explain the favoritism against her. They're
just the beginning part. The first part. Yeah, not making the calls. That's happening around the whole league. She's not the only person that's not getting the calls.
Again, that doesn't affect the favoritism against Clark, though. So I get that. So I'm going to go with the fact that I think it's a partial conspiracy against Caitlin Clark with the refs, but I think it's been better lately. So maybe it's turned the corner, like the respect for Caitlin Clark.
Okay.
That's my theory. That's my theory. Let me know what you guys think down below. Okay, let's talk about ESPN and the bobbleheads over there. It's mainly black females, some of which played in the WNBA, some of which played college ball. And they seem to think that nothing funny is going on with Caitlin Clark. She's just a rookie and they're just breaking her in like any other rookie, when clearly that's not the case. There's obviously more to it than that. And I think everybody but the haters think that. And I think these players know there's more to it than that. Even if, and I'll agree with them that it's overstated, very avid Clark fans, but at the same time, they're in denial. Monica McNutt couldn't even say that they might be jealous of her. She couldn't even say they might be jealous of her. She couldn't even say that sentence. She has forget being objective. She's out in left field on that. So my question is why? Okay. Are they feel they have to support the black females in the league? I don't know. All I know is something's wrong with their attitude towards and their objectivity about Caitlin Clark. And I think there's a partial conspiracy against her with what they're trying to project to the public.
So you think that they're mostly leaning towards, like you said, more of the black players and following, unfortunately, what other people are throwing out there, that who is this white woman coming into a black woman's game?
I think they're erring on the side, protecting them and taking the side of the black players, yes. Because it's clear they're wrong. They're clear they're not objective. Even, with the Olympic, though, she doesn't belong on the Olympic team. They gave all sorts of lame excuses. They're basically saying what the committee said. And even Stephen A. Smith called them out on that. Mm-hmm. So, but everything they've said, where they claim nothing's going on, that's not true. So they're not objective. So that's all I can conclude is there's something else going on here.
Yeah,
I don't know what else to say.
How can you say? You're right. How can you say nothing's going on when it's right there in front of you? And how can that be saying that? Oh, that's just part of the game, or no, it's not part of the a cheap shot and flagrant fouls are not part of the game. So right. for them to turn a blind eye towards that and just say, oh well, she's getting the rookie treatment, and that doesn't make sense.
No, they say stupid things like, what do you want to baby her and things like that? We're not asking for that.
No, we're asking to baby her.
So let's talk about, last but not least, the players. So first we have her teammates. We know Mitchell doesn't like to pass to anybody, but I saw an interview with Mitchell where they asked Mitchell about Caitlin Clark not being named to the Olympic team. She goes, I don't want to talk about that, like really quickly. Like you could tell that she was upset. Well, she shouldn't be considered for the Olympic team. I should be. So,
Right.
But the way she said it, there was even more to it than that, I think. And you can tell Wheeler was nice to Clark at first, but as the season progressed, she passed to her less and less. So Wheeler and Mitchell doesn't pass to her, and there's something going on there. I think her other teammates have not shown that, but those two have.
Yeah, they're essentially what we call in basketball freezing her out. They weren't giving her, passing. She had no problem passing to them. She has no problem doing that.
Right.
But they seem to, like you said, there was one point where Clark was open and Wheeler looked at her and then passed it over to Mitchell. I was like, wait a minute, she's wide open. Why didn't you pass it to her?
Right.
So what's up with that?
Yeah, they both done that more than once. So I think there's a conspiracy against Clark from those two players. The whole team, I don't know. I will say that the whole team didn't stick up for her at first, because we've talked about this in other videos where when Carter smashed into Clark and knocked her to the ground, nobody came to see if she was okay. Nobody got in Carter's face. And they only started doing that after WNBA players in the media called them out for it.
Right.
So I'd say that shows me a little bit of jealousy against her from their own teammates. So I think there's a little bit of a conspiracy from her own players against her. I don't want to say how deep it is, but it certainly exists because I'm giving you some good examples.
Right. Well, you can see, like you said, you can see that with the team play. I mean, they weren't, like I said, complimenting with the passes, or maybe a few of them would cheer a 3-pointer, while the other ones would, like, she hit a 3-pointer. Maybe some other players are cheering. The other ones, Mitchell was just like sitting on the bench, just like no reaction. That's kind of strange.
Yeah. Usually when a person hits a 3-point shot, the bench all seem to cheer, like the whole bench. Not always, but in general. All right. So let's deal with the 132 players that are left. So we get the fact that rookies get a little hazing going on, which is fine. And we get the fact that she's a point guard and she's going to be covered more than other people. But if people had pointed out, like Nancy Lieberman and Rebecca Lobo, who's been around the league from the beginning, and Rebecca Lobo even went back and watched game film of other rookies. And they both said the same thing, that she's been guarded more closely with more double teams and for 94 feet more than any player in the history of the WNBA. And I haven't followed the WNBA since 2016 when they refused to put Candace Parker on the Olympic team. But I've never seen more double teams and more attention on defense than any player in the history of the league. And other people who follow the WNBA have said that. So why, especially since they all think she's overrated and she sucks, why does she get more attention than anybody else? And she also always gets the best defender, even though they have a big time scorer and a very fast athletic person in Mitchell.
Right.
So she gets the second best defender.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. I know she's not a point guard, but she's still more explosive than Clark at this point in her career offensively. So, and also in terms of, she's got a lot of physicality against her, more than any other player in the league, especially the guards at least. She's had some cheap shots. She drives to the basket. She's been hit in the head several times. Yeah. And she's had a lot of physicality, more than any other.
Ruptured eardrum.
She got a ruptured eardrum. We don't know if that was intentional or just careless or whatever, but it happened. And you can see pictures of her after games where her knees and her elbows are all black and blue after every game. And so, why all that? And why so much, to the point where it's like they act like she's the best player in the history of the WNBA since game one.
It seems like, Mark, it's carried over from, like we said, when we watched the NCAA playoffs, when she got battered and bruised during then. So, but I think she's been getting that all through her career, because that's, unfortunately, it comes from coaching, because like you said, You don't want her to drop 40 or 30 points on you. So what do? You kind of pressure her and you put more body into her and you tell your players that. And of course, they carry it out. So it comes from coaching too, but also comes from the players, like you said. Players, it could be subconsciously, they're not really doing it on purpose, but consciously they're like, who is she? Huh, well, I'm going to show her. She ain't scoring on me. You come to the basket, you're going to get knocked in the head. How about that? You won't drive again.
So I said last but not least, but I actually forgot about the coaches. There's 11 other coaches. Now, we know one of them doesn't like her, Cheryl Reeves, and she probably was instrumental in keeping her off the Olympic team. So that, to me, is part of the conspiracy. Also, you can tell she made a tweet during the preseason about this league is not all about one person. And you can just tell she doesn't like Caitlin Clark, or she's jealous of her, envious of her, whatever you want to do. But yet, when she played against her, she put optimum defense against her. So, in fact, all 11 coaches have done that against her. Now, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy against her in terms of that, but they certainly know that their players are jealous of her and envious of her and don't want her to shine. So the coaches contributing to the fact that their game plan is completely designed to stop Caitlin Clark, even though from day one she wasn't great as a point guard because she had never been in the WNBA before. So I'm wondering, are they motivated by supporting their players' jealousy and envy of Caitlin Clark by making sure the game plan is totally designed to stop Caitlin Clark?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, when you do a pregame with the team, I mean, the first thing I'm probably sure on the board, you're right, we have to start Caitlin Clark. Whether it's because she probably did, like I said, you don't want her to drop that many points on your team, 20 to 30 points, or is it, like you said, a carryover from what most of the players think about her, or media or former players, or you're getting all in your ear, even yourself personally think about her?
Yeah, I think they know that the players want to contain Caitlin Clark and not let her shine. And I think they're making their players happy by making this game plan where she's being picked up for 94 feet. And once she crosses half court, she often, anytime she's not in the middle, she gets double teamed. She drives to the basket. She's double team or triple team. I think the player, they know that. I think it's overboard by the coaches because of the fact that it'll make the players happy. I forgot to say this before about the players, but I think the players try just a little bit harder against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever because they don't want Caitlin Clark or the Indiana Fever to shine because that'll make Clark look good, obviously.
Right.
So anyways, those are all the possibilities that I can think of. You can throw in YouTubers also. So there's some YouTubers who are very, very anti-Caitlin Clark. And some of them are flat out racist because there's no other explanation for the hatred and the underrating of Caitlin Clark by some of these YouTubers. So I think that's all part of the conspiracy. So let us know what you think. I don't think like the whole world got together and when Caitlin Clark was, at home and said, let's have a big conspiracy against Caitlin Clark.
Right.
But, it's certainly something's going on. We saw that she wasn't chosen to the Olympic team. That's obviously another conspiracy. What's going on there with the 5 people on the committee plus Coach Reeves? Dawn Staley supposedly didn't have a say, but then I found out she did have a say. The head of the committee is from Connecticut. 3 of the women are Black lesbians on the committee. We could go on and on about that. And she should have been chosen for the team because they gave lame reasons. So that's all part of the conspiracy. And
they can point out, but I think with that, even some people who are fans for her, there was forceful. People were saying that was a bad thing not to put on there, but then they kind of just dealt with reality. So, well, maybe she needs to. It's good that she's not on the team because she can work on her game more, and she can rest because she had a long college season. But on the other hand, I say, well, yeah, that's fine, but also it'd be great for her to be on the Olympic team because she'd be around players that she's admired, and that going up playing for with those type of players, that would bring up her level, and then they would see her how she plays, and that would bring up the level of the Olympic team because the bottom line, I mean, they're going to win either way, but do you want to showcase the best team, that you're the best team in the world? And how else would you show it if you got this one, everybody's heard about her, but now you don't have her on the team? So it's kind of,
I agree, Rob. Now, someone in one of our videos made a comment, and I thought it was a great comment. I don't know if it's true, but they said that this was all part of a conspiracy, the intense defense on her to hold her numbers down and her success down, so they would have an excuse not to put her on the Olympic team. And then once she wasn't chosen for the Olympic team, the defense backed off a little bit on her, and it did. So I don't think that was a coincidence. Maybe there's something to that. They said Rebecca Lobo called off the guards. Now, I don't know if that's true. Rebecca Lobo doesn't seem like that type of person. She lied about Carter, the ref, maybe not seeing Carter smashing into Caitlin Clark. And she also didn't call that as a flagrant one foul, as a possibility. They should review it at the game. But she also went to Connecticut, though. And, she got, who's on Connecticut? Diana Taurasi, and she's on the Olympic team, and she shouldn't be. So who would replace her? Caitlin Clark. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know. I don't know how Rebecca Lobo has that much pull. So I'm not sure that's true. But it was an interesting theory. I do believe once she chose the Olympic team, they did back off a little bit.
Yeah, so. I don't see that much double teaming lately.
Well, less.
It could be because maybe she's getting better or used to it, which she is. Who knows? Or that they've changed the offense when she gets the rebound. She's not just walking the ball up the court, so it makes it easier for them to do that.
Well, part of it, her teammates were not moving properly when she starts to get double teamed. So part of it was her, obviously, that she needs to recognize the double team quicker. But her teammates weren't moving around quicker. So they're playing better against the double team. So it's less effective. So I think that's part of it. Right. All right. So anyways, those are my theories and Rob's theories about whether or not there's a conspiracy against her. Obviously, there's not a worldwide conspiracy against her. But there does seem to be some group effort here. And some of it looks like conspiracy and probably isn't. But some of it probably is a conspiracy, and I think the accusations are true. And let us know what you think and make intelligent, non-insulting comments. If you like this video, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free.
Come on now.
And when you do, make sure you hit the notification bell because you get notified of our next videos. And Rob, our live shows expanded now to 2 hours from 6 to 8 Monday Eastern time, except major holidays, and not during the 2 weeks during Christmas, because we're going to do live shows 2 to 5 for 14 straight days from July 27th to August 10th, because that's going to be prime time in Paris and the marquee events.